Hello, 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 hello.
Hey, how are you, brother?
Mr. Ovi.
How are you, good sir?
You are Mama Orange. How are you, man?
No, I had to bring a dash of color today.
Nice one. Melunka yama tip, man. These things. Mina ngishaya nge-mic ye-laptop la,
Don't
Uh,
worry. I've got a plug for your question, vectors, don't worry.
yeah, yeah. No, man, thanks for availing yourself. I think, like I told you, this is a conversation. Nothing, hectic. I think treat it as one of our phone calls.
Yeah.
Uh, Yeah, I mean, and I think we've got people that have joined us by now. I'm going to maybe just before getting into it, just go to the comments section so that if anyone comments or has a question or whatever, then we can pick it up quickly.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, what happened there? Okay, cool. Welcome to our guests, our viewers at home, and for taking out the time to listen to us. We thank you. We appreciate that. I've got Mofapohedi Obie.
Mofapohedi. No, it's a tongue twister. I don't blame you.
Oh, hey, every time when I type your name, I'm like, hey, just check the spelling because I can see how a Nguni speaker can easily, mess up some of the vowels and all that stuff.
No,
But
no stress.
out of interest, man, I've never asked you this before we get into it. The OB part of your name, what is that? Is that your a short for something? O'Breezy, O'Brien?
So the funny story behind Obi is there's two stories, right? The first one is I think my parents were just mavericks and they liked Star Wars. So there's a wise character called Obi Kenobi.
Oh
So
wow, okay.
my my original name on my ID on my dump pass is Obed, Obed. So
Oh,
when growing up, they kept on calling me Obi. And in high school, there was this girl I was a friend with, and she just got tired of calling me Obed because it just sounds awkward, and she started just
yeah.
calling me, Obi, and it stuck from there. Obi. I'm like, okay, cool. Might as well just work with it.
Thanks to the lady. Yeah, man. Anyway, thanks for making yourself available. I know it's not, that early part of the day. You must have had a long day, long week. A lot is happening. Right now they're busy. There's a hashtag going on Twitter. By this I'm called with South Africa or something to that effect. 'Cause,
I shall
you
reserve.
know,
I shall reserve my comments for that. But yeah.
I was like, I saw that and I was like, hey, people don't waste time. But
No.
anyway, without further ado, as I get my cup of coffee, thank you. Yeah, so maybe just for the benefit of our viewers at home, who is Obi? Just an intro about yourself, and I think your background, expertise, passions, and that kind of like yeah.
Wow, it's always a difficult question when people say, "Tell us more about yourself." I never know how to answer that. Yeah, Obi. Oof, wow, where do I start? Obi is born from Spokane in the Val. Um, currently digital marketer for a well-known institution. I will not name it,
Yep.
um, sake of privacy. Um,
Yep.
um, and literally an enthusiastic member of the
So,
community of the NFT community at the current moment. So yeah, in short, that's who Obi is, and
yeah.
and lastly, a very pro-African development in terms of us as individuals making sure that we benefit as a collective as Africans. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's just me, the arsonist in the building. So yeah.
The arsonist in the building. Tell me about that. You that's something that I've heard you say a couple of times. Is the one thing that fuels your passion in basically I think just about everything that you do.
Yeah. So this thing is actually inspired from the movie from the Dark Knight, yeah, Batman, right? And there's this beautiful character, and I think from out of any cinemas when we revolve into a bad guy and good guy, there's one character that does not lose actually, and his name is the Joker, and it gets to a point where you start realizing that this madman was actually had a point in how he viewed the world, you know, um, and at one point he ends up taking all the mob guys' money and actually start burning it to just to prove a point. And why I've really taken on this really weird ass persona is actually that I'm starting to believe that in society or just generally as individuals, we cannot be in a situation where we're just accepting mediocrity and and being okay with it because tomorrow when we have young ones that are coming after us and asking us why do we accept mediocrity in society, we have to answer for that, you know. And there's a lot of things I think in society we just have accepted as mediocrity. And the nice thing about uh, I don't want to call it nice, but the thing of a reality check that has happened with COVID, it has made us actually stop and actually look at ourselves as individuals and society. And this has really become sort of my forte or just something that I've really accepted it like maybe I'm just a bad person, but we cannot accept mediocrity in terms of what we're doing, development of the black collective, Africans, we cannot accept mediocrity because we'll always be holding the dead cat and waiting for heroes to come and help us. Whilst the
Mm.
villains have always spoken the truth that we need to do shit for ourselves. So that's where literally has come at like we might as well just burn everything down so we can start all over again. We cannot be
Wow.
working with all these old things and accept nonsense and saying it's okay. No. So that's where
Yeah,
sort of that perception has come from. Like, okay, yeah,
yeah,
maybe
sure.
this bad guy persona. People might not like it. People might not like the reality of or the truth. The truth is not nice. It's not dressed up in Louis Vuittons or whatever. It's usually the hobo that nobody wants to look at, but that's the truth,
Mm.
you know. So that's where literally I think sort of that bad persona of being an arsonist. Might as well we just everything down so we can start over, so we cannot accept mediocrity and
Sure.
just literally build a better society for not just ourselves but those that come after us. So yeah, that's literally where it comes from.
All right, cool. That's awesome. I just want to do a quick check if our audio and video is fine from the audience perspective. So I think if all is good, please just hit us up, thumbs up, that all is good, or thumbs down if it's not all good. Yeah, I mean that's something that really I think Wade sends me. My thoughts and all of that. I can see myself going down that rabbit hole, so to speak. But I wanna bring you back to this. So the first time I met you, thanks for the thumbs up. Thank you guys. All is hood. We get you. It's good in the hood. The first time we met was 2016, right?
Yes.
You interviewed me on your podcast. And I think maybe just if you can take us through your journey as far as that is concerned, you've touched on the digital what you call marketing already in terms of your expertise or your passion, and then we'll gently segue into the reason why we are here tonight.
Yeah, sure. Um, One of the big projects that we actually started developing. So me and a good partner of mine, a business partner, um, actually started this. We started off actually purchasing a drone. Weirdly enough, one day we just woke up like, screw this, we're gonna buy a drone. No one is doing it, but throughout the whole process, it became quite evident that one, Ikasi, that we don't have stock images of Ikasi. Every time when you type in township, you always see these ugly shacks. I mean, The township has such beautiful stories and beautiful imagery, but the world is so perceived of this people living in shambles and shacks, and it's just horrible. We're
yeah,
just living on top of each other. And that's where sort of the madness kind of came in of like, okay, why not we do a podcast and actually start
oh,
interviewing people that we really look up to. One of the other big element was like, when we were growing up, we had Buma Khotman that we could talk to, that give us advice. But now, when you started looking at the society in the digital space, you don't have a Khotman that we could actually speak to. I mean, back in the days, I'm going to take it back a bit. We had a Mahotman like Kabzela from YFM. I don't know if you remember Kabzela.
yeah, I remember.
DJ's Goo in his early days actually was that Hotman that you'd listen to, like, gave us motivation. And slowly but surely, with sort of the dilapidation of social media being poisonous, we started not having those individuals that we're speaking to. But, however, when when you're from Mikas, there's a table, there's Ban Ban who's doing this, and they're doing great stuff, but no one is really profiling them. So we started that podcast and literally speaking to all these individuals, and literally we bumped into some of the great people. I mean, I bumped into you. I mean, I was quite shocked when you actually accepted my invite with the one mic at McDonald's, and we spoke.
Yeah,
But that also started fostering sort of good relationships because we started realizing that there's a bigger story that needs to be told. This thing is not about us, it's about the collective and also individuals realizing that we're not alone. This journey, we're actually documenting our own story, and it became sort of a thesis behind us, so saying if we don't tell our own story, we shouldn't get pissed off when people tell our own story. And we saw that. I mean, we were contracted in by some French company, and they were documenting Mama Winnie's funeral, and we shot drone images. But when you were listening to the story, you're like, but no, but this is bullshit. They're lying. They're not actually telling the actual story. And that's what we say, like we need to tell our own story. We need to go back and go back and speak to veterans. We need to speak to young bloods that are coming in and doing all great things, ekasi,
mm,
that are innovating. I mean, we had the opportunity to speak to the late founder of blockchain culture.
one.
Yes, and he told us his story. I mean, I was in awe, like
Yeah,
speaking to him. We've gone to spoken to photographers like Andy Lebala, like the list goes on, and you're like, there's more stories that we need to start telling ourselves and other people
yeah,
to start listening to these stories than just waiting for media, and then they tell crappy stories and we accept. And sort of that's sort of the notion that started coming through is we can't just rely on media because media sometimes just will bullshit us into stories that we don't even know and don't even recognize. We need to
yeah,
start building our own. We cannot wait for government to actually come and say, here's something, build it. We have so many things that we can build. I mean, there was one story about this guy who owned a bicycle company, Eponi, in Soweto.
yeah.
Um,
I know the guy. Yeah,
at the height of COVID, they changed their strategy from doing tours in Soweto to actually starting doing deliveries at the height of level 5.
wow.
That's a business strategy that most universities actually in MBA courses actually learn about. How do you change your strategic your strategy in business that very fast to adapt to whatever environment that you're going with. But this was
Yeah,
Seka. This if no one would document that and say putting that as a case study, that was a beautiful case
yeah,
study,
yeah,
so this really allowed us to really go and deep in conversating with great people. We've met great people, we've made great friends over the years because of that podcast. So that's where it literally came about that I actually met up with you, and you were telling us about this collective of brown individuals sitting and actually business actually happening. Another
yeah.
case study that if no one were to document it, who's going to document it for us? So that's where
Mm,
everything kind of like spurred from actually.
that's so true. That's really powerful. Last week I started watching this new. Excuse my dog, guys. this donkey, what do you call it? Genius, Kanye West.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I
and you
actually need
see
to watch
how it's made up
it.
of. Sorry.
I need to watch the second one today.
You see how it's made up of all this old footage that
Hmm.
started documenting way back whenever. It's also intentional, I suppose, because obviously he knew where he was taking this, and when he gets to a certain point, this is a story that I would like to tell in my own words, type thing. Also, I suppose because sometimes we see people, we see the end result or what we think is the end result, and we don't know what led to that, what was put into that to lead
Yeah.
to that, and like the blood, the sweat, the tears, the failures, um, the flaws, etc., and all those things. We just see this great person where they are and where we find them, and we think, wow, this guy or this girl is dope. Um, but anyway, before we go all the way down this path, I want to show you something now, that I came across, and I think this is a nice way to just tell me if you see it on your side. Ne? You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does
I
it look
think
familiar?
I think I commented.
Yeah, I'm stalking you. This is your response. Don't,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
That's my thing. I should be careful next time with tweet.
So anyway, to the matter at hand, man. I started obviously, noticing that you started engaging around the NFT space. I think I first noticed last year, you know, and the groups or the spaces that you get involved in, the kind of stuff that you share, you get this topic. Some of us are still in the early days. I'm like, what is this thing? How does it work? How would it benefit me and others, etc. Maybe a basic question. Let me not say a basic question, but an opening question would be: what is an NFT, and what does NFT stand for?
Okay, so a Google term for NFT is non-fungible tokens. So when we talk about non-fungible tokens, fungible means non-replaceable, right? And obviously,
Non-replaceable.
yeah, unreplaceable. So
Okay.
a bag of mini meal is replaceable. You have thousands and thousands of mini meal, but a Rembrandt or a Picasso or the Mona Lisa, these are one pieces. They cannot be replaced, right? Then the token element, yes, is the token is activities that happen that are actually recorded on ledgers on the blockchain, right? So this means that when, for example, when I do purchase an item on the blockchain, which is an image, for example, um, that is recorded, right? I'm just going to now break it down in the most simplest terms, right?
Yeah.
That when I purchase this item, it's going to be recorded on the ledger. So, meaning that if Ovid purchase a painting on the
Hmm.
blockchain, it says that this link, which is linking to a JPEG image, is owned by Obi. All rights, depending on what is sort of the agreement is saying that this is owned by Obi. Now, going back again and making it more simpler, right? Also it means because the problem is I think us in the space we use so much jargon that we throw off a lot of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going back again to the most simplest point, right? In a bank transfer, right? Banks, for example, if we're to about to trade something together, right, and our
Yeah.
middle bank is whatever, I'm not going to call any banks for, we're not going to give them credit, X
Yeah.
bank.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If I have a product, right, and you want to purchase this product, I'm going to give you my banking details, right, and through the bank will confirm that you do have $100 or 100 rand from my product, right,
Okay.
and that literally that transaction is recorded, right? So if that is recorded, then from there on, the bank, that's where it makes money, right? So in the sort of the blockchain of everything, when, for example, they don't go into a centralized thing, they go into a decentralized environment where, for example, if you want to purchase this product, a lot of computers that are decentralized across the world will confirm that you have 100 rand to purchase my product or token in that perspective because they don't use fiat, which is money. So literally, it's a transfer um, of goods through the blockchain. That's the most simplest way I can really, really explain it, right?
Oh,
And and I think Gary V, which I don't like, Gary V actually says you need to do 50 hours of learning. So literally, it's just sort of a decentralized environment that allows us to do sort of transfer between each other, where there's a confirmation throughout all the blockchains, which are nodes in the space that are confirming that you do have the 100 rand, and they will come back and say, yes, you can buy the product. So literally just removing the middleman in short.
okay.
I don't
Okay.
know if I explained it. I know there's a lot of terms. Yeah.
Get confusing easily.
Yeah.
But tell me,
Yeah.
when you say goods, is it any goods or is it currently only a certain type of goods that one can buy or sell via the NFT uh, platforms?
So at the current moment, with NFTs, one thing that has really worked out well is sort of from the art community, which is art pieces, right? Art pieces tend to actually work well within the market. But again, we're seeing a new trend also, not even new trend, but also music. So sort of in the creative spaces, that has really worked out very well in terms of that. But outside that scope, it does not mean that that can be only thing translated into creative items. I've seen also another big rise, which is in fashion also, where you
Hmm.
can buy product also on the exchanges itself. So it's not just limited into just art and music, but there's a lot of spaces. In short, we're trying to get into a decentralized environment where we don't have any regulations of banks or
Hmm.
even governments when we're trying to do an exchange. So it's a really peer-to-peer exchange with the trust that the community of this decentralized communities actually trust each other with also the non-governance of banks, because we've seen the level of banks with trust banks and governance, and they've screwed us over for so many years. So it's just one of those. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. A question that comes up right as you're talking is, and I think the one of the things that banks and governments are good at is convincing us that whatever regulations that are in place are largely for to our own benefit as their consumers or customers. Um, in this space, how prevalent or what's the likelihood of one being scammed? How do you guard against that? What do you how do you keep yourself, how do you stay woke, in other words, and be like, okay, it looks like it's a great opportunity, but I suppose also, like anything that is really really great is also attracting people that want to take advantage of others.
Yeah. The space is, I don't want to say new, but the space is technically new. And I'm not gonna, and I'm sorry to say, I'm not gonna bullshit people on the line and saying that it's the most safest place. As much as people say it's the most secure environment to do exchanges, but we've seen so many scams actually throughout the whole NFT communities. People losing the hard-earned Ethereum or Bitcoins because being scammed, right? Um, so one of the most important thing I usually tell people before we even, and the thing is, again, within the South African context, when the whole aspect of Bitcoin first came in, it became a very scammy thing. So when you do talk about Bitcoin, people are like, "Hey, forex." No, I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
a lot of people sort of have sort of a very negative perception when we talk about all this cryptocurrency. Like now, I'm going to lose my money.
Yeah.
Um, to tell the truth, the space is very volatile.
Yeah.
Um, People are vulnerable to scams because we're dealing with people across all over the world. And in spaces where there are millions and trillions that are flowing, people are bound to get scammed. So
Sure.
one of the first thing I usually tell people when introducing them into the space is please do your 50 hours worth of research. Start
50
with
hours worth of research. Yeah.
50 hours worth of research. That's really important
Don't
because
start buying stuff or whatever. Just do the homework. Do your
just do the
yeah.
homework before interacting with the blockchains itself or with the technology itself. Do your 50 hours worth of research. That's really, really important because then you're going to start seeing sort of the loopholes that are there that scammers can actually hit you on. Secondly, once you've finished off your 50 hours worth of research and understanding what the space is, and once you open up your digital accounts, never ever in a Blue Monday provide your seed phrase. You'll understand once you've done your 50 hours worth of work. So seed phrase is literally your PIN code.
Okay.
You cannot give away your ID on your wallet or your PIN code because once you do
Sure.
that, you are going to be scammed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Um,
another thing. Never ever provide your seed phrase or seed code.
it's called a
And
seed code.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a
Yeah.
seed phrase. It's a seed phrase, a 12 letter word that you need to
Yeah.
keep quite safe, you know. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes it really baffles people when you start talking about all these terms. And that's why I say you need to do your 50 hours worth of research to start understanding all these concepts that no one bamboozle you is like, no, I can help you out. Please provide me your seed phrase. All the
Sure.
platforms which are your MetaMask, which most of the NFTs are supported through Ethereum, Solano, Phantom, all of them. They will provide you seed phrase. So it's sort of the identity saying this is your personal thing that you're dealing with. Your PIN code, same as your bank account, you will never give someone your PIN code. So
Yeah.
why on the internet would you provide someone your PIN code? So never on a Blue Monday do that. Please don't. It's not worth it. Otherwise, you're gonna cry with your hard-earned money being stolen by scammers.
Yeah.
The other thing is, as I've said, it's we're still in the literally ice peak of this technology. So yes, there are going to be a lot of scams. There are going to be sort of irregulations from all these organizations that are popping up, and that's the nature of the technology itself. It's still new. We're still literally discovering it. So two things: never provide your seed phrase. Do your 50 hours of research. Those are the two things I can really give you before even starting anything, and that's going to help you out because you're going to start realizing when people saying, "No, no, buy Bitcoin." Yeah, you
Yeah.
can buy Bitcoin, but there are other protocols that you might be interested in personally that you will go into and you literally try to learn about. So, providing yourself 50 hours worth of research does not allow you to just jump with the wind or saying that, yeah, if you put and Bitcoin maximalists are going to kick my ass for this. But literally, you will not go with the wind when someone says, yeah, but just invest in Bitcoin. But there's a lot of projects within the blockchain space itself that you need to learn about. So, yeah, those are my true advisors for people trying to enter into the space.
Yeah. Okay. That's really dope. I think I wanted to ask you while you were talking. So you're talking about doing your 50 hours, putting in the work to learn. Where would you point me as a newbie? So personally, I would go on Google first. No, let's assume I don't know anyone, but what is
Yeah.
the reliable source? Yeah.
Um, I usually tell people your best education would be the University of YouTube.
Yeah.
Um, University of YouTube. I'm telling you right now, once you've done your 50 hours, you're gonna start seeing who are bullshitting you, who are actually doing right, right? because then you start seeing the actual people that are involved in the space. Second place that I would actually suggest is actually start following, if possible, local Twitter spaces. I think, to tell the truth, those spaces you sit with very highly intelligent, and I'm going to say this because I'm black, I don't care, with highly intelligent individuals in the space, literally. And to tell the truth, that for me, these spaces are some of the most truthful people that will assist you without even asking anything, just to onboard you into the technology. Because I think the spaces believe that the more people we onboard and the more people we teach, the better we position ourselves as citizens, you know. So
Mm.
the second place I would say, start following all the communities in sort of the NFT South Africa space. That's one of them. The big one, that really shows and actually onboards artists, for example, that are interested to go into the NFT space. I know there's another one, NFT Africa. There's a community of African NFT artists that are there. So Twitter tends to be a very good space, because I think you can just watch and listen who are actually involved in the space and what they're advising on, and you can start
Yeah,
surfing out who's actually bullshitting you and who's actually on the mark.
yeah.
So those are the two. The third one I would suggest, but it's very, very technical and it runs very quickly, would be Discord. But if you're a beginner, I'd suggest do the first two, which is YouTube and Twitter Spaces. So yes.
Twitter Spaces. Okay, cool. All right. We've got a question which takes me to the next point.
Am I
I think
allowed to
which
say coffee? I swear it's coffee.
sorry.
I'm allowed to say coffee.
I'm also drinking coffee. In a cup written black girls killing it. You guys can see. Eh?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Who made this? Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna post this question just now on the screen. It takes me to the something else that I would like for you to focus on, which is one of the things that COVID did to a lot of people within the country was creatives were hit very hard. You know, the gig
Mhm.
suffered. You may have seen what happened when what do they call that office? Yeah, Department of Arts. DEC.
Somehow.
Basically, people were, and I think a lot of them are still waiting for payouts. Money has been chow, no one is accounting. Um, and you mentioned the brother where it born and how he pivoted during a COVID, to keep his business on track. What opportunities, exist? You've already touched on them, but I think I want us to go deeper, Papa. But I'm an artist, and when I say artist, I would like for you to think, wider than painting or fine arts and that kind of stuff. Just arts, music. You've touched on, I suppose, authors or writers. I don't know if actors would benefit, but who knows, eh? So this is the question from. It doesn't say who's the Facebook user. With digital properties on the rise, can I sell my work, in brackets, art music, in terms of FIFA/NBA players, etc., in the metaverse? So yeah, as I said, can we use this to like get into deep within that space?
Um, with music, it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, with music, we saw Tora Lanes, right, and an artist from Canada. He dropped a project where he was selling his project for $1, right? Dropped the project, $1, made a million within a minute once releasing that.
In a minute.
Yeah, I think it was an hour, a minute, I can't remember, but it was the fastest sales to get to a million, right? Um, we've seen other artists also in the States also, with unreleased projects actually dropping their music into sort of um, also into the NFT spaces. And the nice thing about NFT spaces is their perpetuity. element is once someone buys that property, right? So if someone's buying my music, I'm releasing music to the world, and you
Mm.
buy it, and you decide to resell my music for $1, right? And you bought it from me from $1, and you decided to sell it to for $50. Perpetuity means that I will always get a royalty of 5% whoever resells my music.
Okay.
Current situation with the music industry, situation with the music industry right now is you are contracted by the music industry. You have to
Mm.
wait for royalties, and also when you're about to before release music, you're given an allowance that you have to pay off insurance. I don't want
Yeah.
to go into the whole term, but everybody knows how that works. So with NFT, that literally gives you 100% of your money back with also getting your royalties also every time when your artwork is sold. So the artist is never at the back fold. And that's why this space really got me so interested, because I got tired of seeing creatives being messed over by all these corporate partners or corporate people, because they're just channeling all the money in the background, and we're having artists that are dying broke and cannot account for the music. There's so many documentaries of artists that have died broke internationally, and also South Africa. I have a long list of artists that have died broke in South Africa, but they were filling up stadiums. Then you're asking yourself, like, how can you die broke? You're supposed to be getting royalties for your money. So to answer the user's question, yes, you can also sell your artwork. So with NFT fashion, you can actually craft up your fashion, right, or pieces into the metaverse, which is Decentraland or Sandland, which we've seen, where people can actually wear your art pieces. When you say art pieces, your fashion, and you're actually walking around with someone wearing a Nike T-shirt that you bought. Thing. Um, with FIFA, I think that's why they left the contract with EA Sport, because they started realizing the importance of metaverse. Because to tell the truth, I mean, if I'm playing with you online, we are technically in the metaverse, because we are literally playing against each other's personalities per se that we've drafted out. So
Mhm.
why can you not benefit in that space? So if I have an Obi character in FIFA, in the metaverse of FIFA, because I think that is in the pipeline, you can actually benefit from that. So with your music, with your art, with all these things, you can really benefit within the space. But for me, that really got me excited, because imagine now if my piano is big in Europe, in the UK. People love that. Imagine if we start dropping projects on my piano on NFTs. Even if the genre dies out tomorrow, the artists are sorted for the rest of their lives. They don't have to worry about in perpetuity in terms of them still having to deal with the record label to giving them back their money. You have people that will resell the music to other people also. So there's so many spaces, and I made an example the other time. Like, imagine if, for example, Kendrick Lamar on the unmastered, untitled project was actually released as a metaverse project. That would be mad. That would be insane, because he would have released work that he did not release on a record label to us, for us to actually buy it. And the nice thing also that we're starting to see also with music, I'm speaking a lot about music. That's one thing I've been focusing on. Is then we have DAOs, which are decentralized organizations, where we can come in and start contributing sort of tokens which have monetary value of actually supporting the project. So you want to do music video and actually release your project, we can actually start contributing into this project and providing your project liquidity. Then from there on, once you release the project, I think Nas is doing it. Nas actually is releasing a couple. I think if he hasn't released one, there's another one coming out, right? Where from there on, there's certain limits of criteria that you can match up to. If you're in the gold status, I think you get a percentage of the royalty cut out of it, right?
Oh.
If it's played in movies, you get a specific cut out of it. So you are investing into an artist actually at that level.
Mm.
Um, Imagine now, I mean, Snoop Dogg, and Travis Scott also have been played in the metaverse also. imagine now your music is that you've invested in is playing into the metaverse. You get paid at the end of the day. For me, it's not
Sure.
about people getting paid. It's about us getting evolving ourselves into this new world of projects that we as Africans never had.
Yeah.
We've always been left behind when it comes to new technology. So when all these projects are coming out, for once as Africans, we're actually at the forefront. And I'll say this because then you start seeing all these talents that are coming out of Africa and actually placing sort of the projects actually to the world. And the world is just eating it up. We see it in art, we see it in music, we see it in fashion. Um, for me, 2022, 2023, African fashion is going to become one of the biggest things within the metaverse world itself. Metaverse was still a long way to go, but this space moves very fast. What we think will take a long time ago is 2 months. 2 months, next thing, this thing has popped up. But the thing is, I think Africans are now at the table making sure that within this technology is actually moving forward. So yeah, I don't know if I answered that guy's question or lady question,
Yeah.
but it's a fully loaded question because there's so many elements happening at the same time and it's happening very quickly. And that's why I keep on emphasizing do your 50 hours worth of research.
Awesome. Hmm. That's really powerful because to me it sounds like it's a great way of um, uh, uh, giving the people the power, basically, which would make sense why certain powers that be would be against something like this.
Yeah.
Um, right. I want to ask you something. I think we're gonna wrap it up just now because you mentioned something, and I've come across this term a few times, but on something else that you shared on one of your tweets again, which was I'm gonna give these guys free marketing. The All In podcast.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
They one of the guys there likes to talk about DAOs and that kind of stuff, and he's tried to explain it, but I think he was very much at a higher level than my level. So I was like, what the heck is this thing that he's talking about? What you've said to me sounds pretty much like it's similar to a crowdfunding type of a thing, or even a stock fund.
Yeah, actually, I was about to say the
Yeah,
basic term is a stock fail. It's a digital stock
yeah,
fail to tell the truth because
yeah,
then it's when individuals believe in a project. They're saying, okay, we're going to put in equity into this project, and from there on, once this project has hit a specific milestone that we want to achieve, then you get rewarded in terms of the token, in terms of airdrops, depending on what the project is all about. So
yeah,
literally, when you want to break it down in sort of usable terms, it is a digital stock fill to a certain extent. And weirdly enough, talking about digital stock fill and in my hours of madness, I'm like, imagine if we had a digital stock fill. Stockville in South Africa is worth billions and trillions, right? I don't know
sure,
what's the current market, but I mean, it's worth more than Trudeau's and Edgar's, altogether.
sure,
Imagine if we had a DAO, a digital Stockville DAO that allows us to buy whatever big projects that are in the country. And
yeah,
then you are rewarded with what you're rewarded with, not the shares from Easy Equity. Yeah, you are rewarded specifically what you're investing in specifically. Now you're giving the people power and anatomy because then from the in the DAO also same within the stock firm, you need to have a treasurer, you need to have governance. So the more you put in allows you to be on the board of governance of saying which decision are we taking or the direction that we're taking with this. I'll call it digital stock firm for now, with this digital stock firm. Are we
yeah,
going to be investing in specific other projects? Are we going to be releasing money within a particular term? I usually tell people let's try to simplify the language that our people also understand. So we're not out here DAOing and NFTing or DeFiing. We need to explain the terms properly because
yeah,
then the more we allow people to ask questions, it allows us to also onboard people with this information that we're holding across the board. So yeah, so literally going back to the term, our digital stock firm allows us the amount of money. So if you put in 100,000, we put you onto the board of governance of the DAO. So we can decide, okay, guys, we've hit our milestone. We have about four options. Where do we go from here? So people that have the amount of 100,000 can decide, okay, um, we want to invest in, I don't know, PPC, for example, but we want to buy proper stake in it because we have 100 million, for example. And we're not just buying one or two shares, we're buying major shares that we can decide in this. That DAO actually controls that because we've put liquidity into that. So literally, a DAO is the digital stock fill of blockchain, in short. And there's a
Okay.
lot of digital stock fills on the blockchain.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got an interesting question here from Sizwe Den. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Business continuity is a concern for me. If something happens to you, how does your asset move to beneficiaries? I mean, Snoop Dogg has over $18 million there.
Yeah. Caesar, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
That's a question. I think once we've had people that if you've gone through the history of like Bitcoin, people have lost their keys, and they bought a lot of Bitcoins and they lost those keys. And one of the big things, and it goes back to the 50 hours worth of research, people always tell you keep the keys quite safe, like
mm,
documents of your life insurance and whatever, put it in the same pack. So let there be any situation that happens to you in terms of you passing away, at least someone within the family knows where to go. And don't do these things secretively. I think if you have a partner, don't do it secretively. At least let someone know what you're doing, because if you've invested millions and millions and you die,
yeah.
those things stay in the blockchain.
And then they can
No
check.
one
You
has
know
to see things. The irony of this is going to stay in the blockchain. No one has to sit
Yeah,
for it, and millions are just sitting there, and you just literally contributed that. So
yeah,
I will keep it there with the kids' birth certificates and life insurance. Put it right there. But we make jokes, but it's a serious thing. It's a serious thing where people actually have their house got burned, and you've kept a
yeah,
piece of paper. You've lost it.
yes,
It's gone. So within the 50 hours, these are the elements that you start seeing from a business continuity. And this is where the part is interesting. Is we're at the early stages of this internet world. How literally 90% of these projects can fail. Maybe all of us
mm,
can lose our money. Maybe Snoop Dogg's 18 million will not be 18 million when other projects happen. The most
yeah,
important thing is about the technology that is being developed by these projects that we see. I think that's the most important part. You'll hear people complain like, "Yeah, you're gonna make money on Bitcoin," but okay, cool. But what does that mean? Only store value? There needs to be more. So that's what I'm saying. Probably 90% of these NFT body clouds might fail tomorrow. I don't know. But for me, it's literally how do we extract the technology for us to use it for us as Africans? On the
yeah,
podcast that you're speaking about, Kama Pathia, I can't pronounce his name properly, the Indian guy, says
mm,
one key particular thing. He says Western Europe and Europe has an technological infrastructure that is aging very quickly, and they can't fix it. Now, what all these millionaires and billionaires are looking towards is Africa. Because
mm,
why? We use mobile. So meaning that there's a big space for millionaires and billionaires looking toward payment systems. So, if that is true, and all millionaires and billionaires are actually looking towards Africa to implement new infrastructure for technology to actually happen, how we as individuals who are within whatever spaces are we in actually
yeah,
preparing ourselves to be part of this? Because we cannot sit on the fence and wait for other billionaires from America or Europe to actually bring all these technologies. While we sit on YouTube the whole day, but we're not ready to educate ourselves about this new
yeah,
technology. Makes no sense. We cannot sit back and like, yeah, but Bitcoin, but what are you educating yourself about the movement of money or movement of the psychology of scarcity? How are you teaching yourself? There's so much technologies. I was going to take 3 podcasts to really talk about this thing, but there's so many projects that are happening that we need to involve ourselves in. We're talking about sensors right now, right? That is happening. Imagine if we had a census where it's very decentralized, where we're capturing all that information on a decentralized thing. We cannot fabricate that information from that blockchain. And there's projects that are doing that in terms of IDs also. It's called Handshake from America. So it literally captures all these infrastructures. But these technologies are there, but you have to do your 50 hours worth of work. So that's just like my notion. So for business continuity, yes, they might fail tomorrow, but the most important thing is what are we drawing out of it?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I think also you mentioned a partner and all that. I think, as we grow, um, either as businesses, individuals, having a lawyer,
Yeah.
just in J as a standard, not having a lawyer only when you need a lawyer. You
Mm,
understand what I'm
mm,
saying? So,
mm.
that's how you protect and preserve your estate. You might not be in a position to share with a partner, for instance, or you don't have a partner to share any
Yeah.
such information. You understand? So I think having that for that forethought in terms of, okay, this is what I'm building, this is where I'm going, and I've got a commercial lawyer to help me with my businesses. I've got a tax lawyer to help me with my tax issues. Because
Mm,
you don't only need an accountant or a tax consultant for tax, but you also need a lawyer that's qualified and experienced within the tax law space.
true, true.
A lawyer for my administration of estates and family, building the estates, for the family. Um, Criminal lawyer if I get arrested on a Friday night for doing something stupid like
Yeah, you can't only call
which
Scorpion
you don't,
lawyer.
which you don't promote, but life happens, and the thing is that we find ourselves. It's someone put it like this: it's more expensive looking for or contracting a lawyer at the moment when you need them.
Mm,
Because chances are the damage has either been done or things are about to blow up and whatever. And there's going to be a lot more work that they need to put in, and therefore, it ends up costing you more, not only in terms of money, but much more costly to have them, even when there's no explosions and any exciting drama and all that kind of stuff. So I think to see this question, that's what I would suggest. Just as a general standard, having our houses in order,
mm,
uh,
mm.
and obviously one or two people that you really trust to say, look, that's my lawyer there, that's my accountant. I've got a safe in the house. That's the maybe the combination to the safe, those types of things. I think we don't plan out our lives in such a way that there's a plan. It's more like we live by hope
Mm.
that things will go, south at some point. Anyway, I think you've covered quite a lot of groundwork. I encourage anyone that's listening to us, watching us tonight, find Obi on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. You can search his name there. I think on Twitter it's OBC.
Oh, nice.
Right?
Oh, be nice.
Obviously, the nice.
OBNIC.
Yeah, I think that's also how some people are afraid of Twitter because of the drama, the toxicity, cyberbullying, and all that. And Ulebu, Usilebuho, Life's Good, Dr. Life's Good said something once about how you keep your timeline clean. Also, is informed by who do you follow.
Mm,
You
true.
be selective on the people that you follow. Check what they like, what they retweet, what they comment on, because their action also brings whoever that they engage with on your timeline. And I think
Yeah.
that's how you keep it, safe, clean, and whatever. Then you get to benefit and learn more, from great minds such as Obie's. Bro, thank you for your time. I think I really enjoyed this conversation. You've touched on a lot of points that we do need to have a follow-up conversation to this.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I mean, I think one of my last comments, I mean, as I've said, we cannot wait for other people to do shit for us. We have to literally stand up and actually learn and actually use this technology.
Yeah,
One of the funny conversations we were recently having is currently the Ukraine and Russia situation. What happens now? Because you know that Ukraine has a specific number of Bitcoin machines. What happens now when war hits that side and the energy
mm,
crisis situation? So we're saying that, don't you think we're laughing about it, but it made so much sense at the time that what if, for example, like the aspect, I don't know if I'm giving away my idea, but I don't care. But imagine if, for example, Lesotho became the home of actually Bitcoin. Makes a shitload of sense because Lesotho is actually run by hydropower. It's supposed to be running on hydropower because Africa grabs a specific amount of thing, and it's hydropower, water. Now, imagine if we started having stations there of Bitcoins. It could actually start working at a high sufficient level. Number two, that would help the government, whatever cut they want. Number two, that would improve employment within the country itself because then from there on, people are forced to learn about the technology because, if Ntate Mama from Lesotho actually has that station at his house or that it's running on this electrical power, he's getting money from it and internationally. And then from there on, we have cell phones, that allow this technology. So why we're saying all of this, we're saying we should not be waiting, we should be preparing ourselves. We have so many
mm,
professionals that have went to school. It does not mean just because you don't understand the IT language that you need to be closed off from this. That is a very stupid thing that we're going to take and actually damage ourselves as a society. So
mm.
50 hours, let's learn, let's create great stuff, man. So yeah, that's my
Yeah,
closing comment. Yeah.
that's powerful, man. Yeah. Thank you very much, Obi. We definitely need to come back to this because you've already touched on something that I am very much passionate about, which is I'm always curious about the dots. I saw a tweet, earlier today from someone I think that doesn't really understand that there's other things to understand that we don't know much about.
Mm,
Why? So her view was Russia must not do what they're doing because they are innocent people in Ukraine, right? Which is true. Which is true. Yeah, it's a noble thing. So where I think she didn't understand, and someone kind of interjected and tried to show her how multi-layered it is and why it's happening and all that. It got me to go and read up and just check the history, how many years back or whatever, what's been happening between these two countries. Why is the US reacting the way that they are? It's basically a whole lot of a geopolitical conversation,
mm,
which I schedule and have another time. But it really helps to understand Uguti, things just don't happen because someone has a kind heart and they want to save some poor innocent civilians or whatever. There's always something, and it's also the location of that country and what it means from an infrastructural interest. With okay, you're messing with these guys. These are the interests we have. If it messes us up this thing here, it's going to trigger other things. There's a whole
mm.
lot of ripple effect that then impacts the pipeline. But we can sit here the whole night. Next thing, Segu 9. Um, but thank you. We will be, I mean, anyway, those who missed out on the live will catch. It's going to live on it's on the group on Facebook. It's on the BrownSense page, the BrownSense Market on YouTube. It's on Twitter. I don't see the Twitter icon here. But basically, it's going to be available online for a rerun. All right, man. Cool.
Thank you for the invite. Thank you for allowing me to share my weird ideologies. But thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks to our listeners for joining us. Have a good evening, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, man. Bye bye.